I'm Sam. Welcome to Brickwall Pictures. Today I'm doing a Donnie Yen tier list. I've previously done tier lists for Jackie Chan, Iko Uwais, Tony Jaa, and Jet Li. And now I'm doing Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is one of my favorites of the martial arts acting world. I love the guy. An excellent fight performer, but I also think he's a great actor too. He's so charismatic. He carries a lot of emotional depth outside of the fight scenes, and that really makes you care more about all of his characters once they are in the fight scenes. And today I'm going to be ranking 18 of his movies in a tier list format. These are just in a randomized order here. We got Once Upon a Time in China 2 up first. He wasn't in the first one. The first one was all Jet Li all day. This time it's still starring Jet Li, but now Donnie Yen is in it. It's not his only crossover with Jet Li. There's a more impressive one. He's not a huge role in this. I mean, he's a substantial part of it, but he's not like a second lead or anything like that. Once Upon a Time in China is pretty good. It's not the most memorable. Yeah, I'm due for a rewatch of this one, so my score could fluctuate a lot. I'm going to play it safe for the time being. Just pop it in the C tier. It doesn't do too much that other better martial arts films don't do. Next up, we got Iron Monkey. Iron Monkey is excellent. It has well-earned classic status. Quentin Tarantino was actually a big part of Iron Monkey receiving more exposure to Western audiences. He made it part of his Tarantino Presents line of films, maybe even his first one actually, which is something he does where he basically just puts his name on a movie and secures wider distribution for that movie. His name on it is enough to pique the interest of certain Western distributors and audience goers. If they see Tarantino's name on the case, they go, ooh, Tarantino endorsed this? I know he's got good taste in film, so they check it out. He's done it with other movies too, like his name is on Hero, another Donnie Yen and Jet Li movie. His name is on the Protector DVD with Tony Jaa. Anyway, Iron Monkey is a classic. It's directed by the master Yuen Woo-ping. It's got a good mix of grounded fighting with more of the wire work wuxia kind of style. The fight scenes are all incredibly dynamic. The finale on top of those wooden sticks while there's a fire raging underneath them is incredible. Super intense. Very impressive technically and performance-wise. Really outstanding. Iron Monkey, I think, lands itself in the S tier. You can make a case for A tier. There's some things that haven't aged super well. I'm going to put it in the S tier, though. I think it's great. Next up is Kung Fu Killer. This film is also known as Kung Fu Jungle. They're the same film. Some people like Kung Fu Killer a lot. It didn't leave any impression on me. I think I might have even turned it off early. I don't think I watched the last 20 minutes or so because I really wasn't vibing with how the fight scenes were shot and edited. They're cut together in a montagey way where a fight happens and then it'll crossfade to later on in the fight. What are you doing that in an action movie for? Come on, show me the fight. Don't cop out by doing that. I didn't like it. The story is just very generic. There's this guy who wants to kill people and he's doing it in these different kung fu styles. Didn't work for me. I did not like it. There's also a lot of time paid to the antagonist of the film, not as much time paid with Donnie Yen himself. I didn't like Kung Fu Killer. Right now I'm going to slot in the E tier because I didn't like it at all. It's the only one of these that I didn't watch all the way to the ending. Next up is Special ID, another one of his more generic films. But Special ID fared a little better for me. I don't know why it is because the reviews on Kung Fu Killer and Special ID are a little bit inverted as to how I felt on them. Special ID is definitely generic. There's nothing stand out about the story. But I really liked how the fight scenes were executed. There's a really good car chase that I liked a whole lot. There's a great final fight scene on a bridge with the car going over the end of it. I like Donnie Yen's performance. I like these little character details that distinguish him a little bit more from some of his other roles. Maybe not on a script level, but definitely on a performance level. It is very generic, though. Nothing really stands out about it other than the fight scenes, which I think are pretty good. They're not excellent. It's kind of between D and C. I am going to be generous and give it a C tier, though. Next up is Ip Man, the original Ip Man. This was the film that sort of rocketed Donnie Yen to superstardom outside of Hong Kong. Ip Man has a much-deserved following all around the world, whereas a lot of his other films haven't really broken out in as strong a way as Ip Man has. We have a full review for the entire Ip Man trilogy on this channel. We made that review before Ip Man 4 came out, so there's no talk about that one. But if you want to hear more of my thoughts on Ip Man 1, 2, and 3, check out that video because I won't go into too much detail on them here. Fully deserves the S rank. And we got Ip Man 2 coming up right after this. You can debate whether Ip Man or Ip Man 2 is better. I think they're both incredible. I think the fight scene between Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung on the table that cracks in half is one of my favorite fight scenes ever, top 5. It's such an iconic kung fu setup of this fight on the table, cracking in half. All that stuff is just so great. I love it. I'm putting it in the S tier again. I know we got 3 S tier films already. That's where I put them. I think they're all excellent. Next up is Blade 2. Blade 2 is one of his Hollywood film productions, one of his earlier Hollywood film productions, outside of maybe Shanghai Nights if that came first, but Shanghai Nights isn't even on here. Anyway, Blade 2. It's great. It's the best Blade movie. If I'm ranking it on Donnie Yen factor, like I'm ranking the overall quality of the films, but I gotta take into account at least a little bit the substantiality of Donnie Yen's involvement. So Blade 2 I'm gonna put in the C tier for that reason. On That Night While We Dream has made its way into a number of the tier lists because it is a sort of like martial arts all-stars, like get-together, team-up kind of movie. But man, oof, this cast deserves so much better to be brought together. And then this is what they put out. I've talked about this a lot on this channel. It's already made its way into a couple of my other tier lists, as well as I called it one of the worst movies of the decade. So I'm just going to play a clip of me talking about it from before so I don't just repeat myself. It's a vanity project made by Jack Ma, a Chinese businessman with a $39.2 billion network, who threw a ton of money into this piece of shit film that is just designed to make him look cool. The entire purpose for this film existing is so that Jack Ma can pretend to beat up a bunch of legendary martial arts masters with his special brand of slow fu. And it's a big slap in the face to the actual talents of the legitimate martial artists involved. Jack Ma has shitty martial arts and a face like a Lego frog. Get him out of my action movies. Damn, what a squandered gathering of talent. Jack Ma's got a head shaped like a typewriter and a face that looks like someone highlighted it and hit Command minus. Yeah, awful. F tier. I hate this fucking movie. Next up is Killzone, aka SPL, aka SPL : Killzone. It's Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung, and they of course fought in Ip Man 2. Here they're fighting again. You also got Simon Yam and Jing Woo in the mix. Killzone is all about the fight scenes. The story I do not care about. It definitely places more of an emphasis on the story than a lot of martial arts films do, but I think that is to its detriment because the story is not that engaging. It's not that particularly well written. Not here for it. But the fight scenes, oh my god, the fight scenes are excellent in Killzone. It's just a shame that there aren't more of them. There's really two huge action scenes that are both like, those are S tier action sequences. It's just that they're encapsulated in a movie that has a lot of fluff, a lot of filler. If I was just ranking the alleyway fight between Donnie Yen and Jing Woo, whoo, S tier. If I was just ranking the big showstopper fight scene between Donnie Yen and Sammo Hung at the end, whoo, S tier. Overall movie though, I don't think I can put it above C tier because the rest of the movie really drags it down. If I was rating just the story and all the other elements, it would be in the E tier. Those fight scenes bring it up a couple levels. Next up we got Ip Man 3. Now Ip Man 3 is for a lot of people where the series started kind of dropping off, not being as high quality. You had a change in action director from Sammo Hung to Yuen Woo-ping. Both legends in their own right, but definitely different styles. The action certainly changed from Ip Man 2 to Ip Man 3. It seems like the consensus is that Ip Man 3 is a big step down from Ip Man 1 and 2, but I don't agree with that. I think Ip Man 3 is still great. I still love Ip Man 3, and I rewatch it a lot. Yeah, Mike Tyson is a little goofy that he's even involved, and his character is very poorly written, but the fight between Mike Tyson and Donnie Yen is really good. If you're just looking at the fight, it's great. They used his boxing style very well. It's cut excellently. It's nice and quick. Yeah, Mike Tyson's a terrible actor and with his couple of lines, and his character really doesn't have much point in the movie. But there's a lot of stuff in Ip Man 3 that I liked, and I actually think it maybe does a little bit better over Ip Man 2. I think the editing of the fight scenes is better in Ip Man 3 than in Ip Man 2. Ip Man 2 had some choppy editing. Not to a fault, of course, because it's still S tier, but Ip Man 3, I think, has cleaner editing. I also like the bolder color palette. It's got warmer tones, heavier saturated colors to it. It's got more flair in the cinematography, like the top-down fight scene moving down the staircases. That's a kind of stylistic flourish that wasn't really in the other two. Whereas the color grading in the first film, I think, is overly dour to a fault, a little too extreme. I think the color grading in Ip Man 3, I like it. Certainly different, but it works for me. Now, it does have more flaws than the other two in terms of like the plot, the narrative. It's also retreading some areas, but I really like the story with Ip Man and his wife and her dealing with cancer. I think it was very well executed. I've heard some people go, oh, the cancer story is boring and they just want to get to the next fight scene. I was invested in his relationship with his wife and in her struggle with cancer. The final fight scene has very little purpose in the story because Ip Man doesn't really have too much reason to be in that fight, but my God, that final fight is incredible. The progression from hand to staff combat to the double knives, it's amazing. It's a fantastic final fight scene to cap the film off on. And if that fight scene ended the whole series, I would have been happy. I am tempted to also give Hitman 3 the S tier. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of pushback if I do that. So maybe it should be in the A tier. I don't know. I know a lot of people might even put it in the C tier or the B tier or whatever. It's got to be at least A tier for me. If I'm really comparing like apples to apples here on the fight scenes and the drama, it is definitely a little bit under both the first and the second film. It's still so good though. Man, it really could share an S tier, but if I'm being strict on what becomes an S, because I don't want to be too easygoing on these films, I think I got to give it the A tier. But it's at the very tippy top of that A tier, A+. Next up is Rogue One. On the one hand, I like that the Star Wars franchise is bringing in Eastern actors that haven't really been as exposed to Western audiences. Like it brought in Iko Uwais and Yayan Ruhian in The Force Awakens. That was the highlight of the movie for me. On the other hand, it does kind of rub me the wrong way that now Rogue One is what most Western audiences know him for. People see Donnie Yen and they go, oh yeah, Chirrut Imwe, or whatever his fucking name is. They go, oh yeah, that guy. It's the blind guy from Rogue One. It's like, oh, that should not be his legacy, if you know what I mean. But it is good that people are at least being introduced to him, and hopefully it gives him some more like bargaining power in terms of getting like passion projects made, that kind of thing. As far as an actual film, I think he's the best part of it. I am on record as really not liking Rogue One at all. I think it's a bad film. Do not like it. I'm not a big Star Wars fan in general. Rogue One, I do not like at all. I think it's I haven't even seen all the modern Star Wars films because I just do not care for them whatsoever. Sorry if you're a fan of them, but I haven't watched Solo and I don't really plan to. I didn't watch whatever the end of the new movies was called with I don't even know the title. Rise of the Jedi. Last Jedi, I didn't see that one, and I didn't see Rise of Skywalker either. Rogue One and Force Awakens, which I guess are the only two of the new ones I've seen. I don't like either of them. But Rogue One is much worse than Force Awakens, I would say. Donnie Yen is the best part of it, so I won't give it an F tier because it's the Donnie Yen tier and he is the best part of it, but I gotta go E tier. You know what? Fuck it. F tier. I really don't like Rogue One at all. Next up, Legend of the Fist, The Return of Chen Zhen. Now, Chen Zhen is a legendary character. If you're not familiar, he was played by Bruce Lee. He's even been played by Donnie Yen before this point. Legend of the Fist opens with a bang. It opens with an excellent parkour chase / fight scene / like action shootout scene. He's basically parkouring his way across a World War I battlefield, and it's great. Kicks the movie off on a high note, but then the rest of the movie is just like way downhill after that point. The movie never even comes close to reaching the same heights that it does in that opening sequence. I would recommend just watching that opening sequence and then like turning the movie off. Maybe just like watch that scene on YouTube. Not very good. There are a couple other okay fight sequences, like there's a fight scene out in the rain on top of the car that's pretty good. But in short, there's not enough action, and the action that is there doesn't live up to that opening action sequence. Legend of the Fist, Return of Chen Zhen, not great. I'm going to slot it into the D tier. Next up is Iron Monkey 2. We saw that Iron Monkey is in the S tier. Iron Monkey 2, it's a big downgrade, I think, from the original. It's not awful, but it feels very goofy in comparison. The action isn't anywhere near as tight. It's not like the story in the original Iron Monkey was anything incredible, but it was at least like a good story with likable characters that you rooted for. Iron Monkey 2 doesn't really have that. It has a story, but it's so slapdash. Iron Monkey 2 doesn't really work for me, and I'm going to put it in the D tier. Next up, we have Hero. Hero is a Jet Li starring vehicle. Donnie Yen really is only in like one scene, or one sequence, I guess you could say, maybe a couple scenes stitched together. He's got one fight scene. That one fight scene is amazing. Excellent fight scene. It's the one that's done in the mind. You hear it's like set to music. They're imagining their combat. They know how it's going to play out because really good. They're like meditating in this fight. Excellent stuff. If I'm rating Hero as a film, like I just did in my Jet Li tier list, it would get an S tier. But I gotta take the Donnie Yen factor into account because he's hardly in it. It's definitely not a Donnie Yen movie. It's definitely a Jet Li movie that Donnie Yen has a great supporting role in. So whereas it's an S tier Jet Li movie, it's going to be an A tier Donnie Yen movie. Next up is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, The Sword of Destiny. Now this is obviously a much later follow-up to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the Ang Lee masterpiece. Sword of Destiny feels like it came way too late as a sequel. It's kind of like, why are we doing a sequel at this point? And it's not even that closely related. It's in the same world. It has similar style, but the style is pretty different as well. Like it's doing stuff with color grading and flashbacks that the original didn't do. It's not doing other things that Crouching Tiger did do. And it's pretty clearly a big downgrade from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That being said, I don't hate it like some people hate it. I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's like a mess like a lot of people seem to think. When you compare it to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, yeah, it's bad in comparison to that. As just a regular, run-of-the-mill action movie, it's not bad. It is still better than a lot of these other movies on this list. But it's definitely a step down. It's C or D tier, and I think I'm going to slot it in the D tier because when I watched it was enjoyable. Now it's been a couple years. I haven't had any inkling to revisit it, and I can't really remember much about it whatsoever. Not a lot of staying power. Next up is Chasing the Dragon. Chasing the Dragon I was excited for. I was following it for a while, like on IMDb before it even had a poster or anything, so I had pretty high expectations for it. It's Donnie Yen and Andy Lau. Donnie Yen's character is named Crippled Ho, which is kind of funny, I guess. I don't know, maybe not. And he's like the bad guy in this one. I don't like how it's executed. There's not a whole lot of martial arts action. Coming down to like who the characters are. I don't think the script is very good. It is more story driven than a lot of these films, but I just don't think the story is all that great. It's like a run-of-the-mill gangster film, but very, very watered down. It's trying to be like a Scorsese kind of gangster movie. It's trying to be Goodfellas, but for like the Chinese heroin trade, and it doesn't pull it off. Not good. Not really worth your time. It's overlong and doesn't deliver on what it sets out to do. Giving it the E tier. Big disappointment. And speaking of big disappointments, Ip Man 4. Now, Ip Man 4 has had a pretty positive reception. I felt the way about Ip Man 4 that I've seen a lot of people respond to Ip Man 3. I thought Ip Man 3 fully delivered. Ip Man 4, however, does not. I think it has the weakest script by far. I think it has the weakest fight scenes by far, the weakest structure, the weakest characters. That being said, Donnie Yen is still good, even though he has so much less to work with. He is still good. He still feels like the Ip Man character. Feels like a natural progression of him. The Bruce Lee sequence is fun. I think Bruce Lee was in it the right amount. He doesn't steal the show from Ip Man, but you get a cool Bruce Lee style fight scene. I also want to pay commendation to Scott Adkins as the bad guy. One of the best in the martial arts game. Scott Adkins and Michael Jai White are easily the two best non-Asian martial arts action stars. Both great. Scott Adkins is excellent. He's in a lot of not so great movies, but he's always good in them, at the very least. And Ip Man 4 is no exception. He's great. He's the best part of the movie outside of Donnie Yen himself. His character is a pretty lazy retread of characters in the previous Ip Man films. Like, he's a retread of the Japanese general in the original. He's a retread of the Twister, the boxer in Ip Man 2. He even feels like a retread of Dave Bautista's character in the Ip Man spin-off, that Master Z movie. It's a very similar character. Scott Adkins does a lot with it, though. He elevates that character, and he's great in the fight sequences. So it is still worth watching. I wouldn't say avoid Ip Man 4, but it's the worst of the series by far, and I think it really ends the series on a little fizzle rather than a bang like I was hoping for. It's C or D. I feel like how disappointing it is makes me want to put it in D tier, but if I were to remove it from the Ip Man series and just judge it on the story and the characters, I think it feels worse in comparison to the previous films that are so good. So try to cancel out that bias. I think it's more of a C tier film than a D tier film. And finally, we have Flashpoint. Flashpoint is another collaboration with Wilson Yip of the Ip Man series. Flashpoint gets a little bit less recognition than Killzone, even though the two feel very similar to me in terms of the plot, the connecting bits between the fights not being so great, but the fights themselves being fucking incredible. And Flashpoint has more action, and it's a little bit more evenly spaced out throughout the film, which really helps the viewing experience. I also think the story is just the tiniest bit more engaging than Killzone's story. The tiniest bit less generic and more interesting. So Flashpoint comes out on top. The ending action sequence, starting off as a shootout and moving into a one-on-one fight scene, is one of the best action sequences and progression of action sequences in Donnie Yen's whole career. It's really good. It goes above and beyond everything else in the film, like by miles. It's such a good finale action sequence. It's very long, and it just has such good momentum to it. It's constantly escalating. I mean, it's almost like de-escalating because they go from using guns to using hand-to-hand, which I guess is a literal de-escalation, but it feels like an escalation in the intensity and the intricacy of the choreography. It's him versus Colin Chow. Their one-on-one fight is just so good. I love it. I've rewatched it over and over again. I've only watched the full Flashpoint movie from front to back once, but I've watched that ending action sequence like a dozen times. It's really good. And it brings Flashpoint to a B tier. The plot problems still can't bring it up to an A tier, but it definitely brings it above a C tier. It brings it above Killzone for me. And there we go. That's our ranking. The spread is a little lopsided. We have a lot in the C tier, which I wasn't expecting until I sat down and analyzed all these. We also got a trilogy of S tier films that are excellent. Hero is an S tier film, just an A tier Donnie Yen film. So it's kind of 4 S tier films that he's a part of. And I do think Ip Man 3 is arguable as an S tier film. So a lot of bangers in his filmography. So that was my Donnie Yen tier list. Be sure to check out my other tier list videos. I got one for Jackie Chan, Tony Jaa, Jet Li, Iko Uwais. The playlist for them is on the end screen here, and they're all individually in the description. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Check out more of the stuff I got here. I got a lot of martial arts content always coming out, plus just all kinds of other movie content. We just had the macabre month of horror, so there's a whole bunch of horror content that just came out. We got reviews, we got video essays, we got all kinds of stuff. So subscribe to Brickwall Pictures, stick around, I'll see you in the next video. This is just my voice, by the way. It's what I sound like, so if you left some kind of comment about my voice, you need to go ahead and delete it, because, yeah, I've heard it before. Oh, I sound like Bob Odenkirk? Okay. I sound like Casey Affleck, too? I didn't know they sounded similar, but I guess so. Oh, I sound like Anton Yelchin, do I? Okay, that's cool. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.